I won't share any slides, and I will just give a brief overview of our experience globally, but particularly with a couple of anecdotes from the German experience today. I'm not a Baltic region expert, but I do work closely with the colleagues in the region. Of course, we have also, SAP has a very strong footprint in the Baltics. They are some of our best public services customers, and there's a good reason for that, clearly. I think we've been working with them on one of the leading, in Estonia, for example, on an e-prescription service since 2015 already, a few years ahead of the game for some of the other countries. And now you see, with regard to COVID, a kind of a catching up process. And that's really my main message, that the pandemic created, of course, serious disruptions to both the public and private sectors. And a lot of governments around the world realized that their infrastructure, their ICT infrastructure, was simply not resilient to respond in time. We see it perhaps most obviously in the cooperation we've been doing with the German government and with Deutsche Telekom around the Corona Warn app. Most of you online may know that SAP developed the app in a remarkably short time frame. It was about 6 to 8 weeks, with Deutsche Telekom, with the Robert Koch Institute, and with the government here for Germany. It's been an enormous success. It had more downloads than any other app, public app, I think, globally anywhere, if I have my stats correct. But we've had difficult with the tracing end of it, not so much because of the app, but because of the fax dominant infrastructure in the regional health offices in Germany. So even for a country like Germany, technologically advanced, enough money to put into infrastructure, we're running into difficulties with the applications in response to a crisis like COVID has required. So I think that generally speaking, we will see a change to more citizen-oriented services. We will see a lot of governments scaling up their infrastructure. Before COVID, digital strategies were set for 2 to 3 to 4 years. Now governments are scaling up those initiatives in a matter of days or weeks. A lot of extra money has also flown into these initiatives, both from the governments themselves and obviously from big donors, the European Union within Europe, but also the World Bank and others. There are enormous stimulus programs that are dedicated to this end. We hope that that momentum will be maintained. One of the risks that we see from the SAP side is that the budgets are also going to be hard hit. A lot of those monies are going indirectly into citizen services, and that may be that the momentum we feel for the digital boom now is going to hit the wall of austerity in a lot of those governments in the next couple of years. Nonetheless, we did have, as I say, we're not just with the Corona Warn app, but also another experience from Germany at the beginning of the process was the development that SAP participated in of the repatriation app for the German Foreign Ministry. So we had a lot of citizens scattered, or as every country did at the time the first lockdown hit, scattered across the world. And the German Foreign Ministry had no good technology to rescue those stranded citizens and bring them in. And so within a couple of weeks, we helped them build a cloud-based so-called repatriation app. And yeah, in a matter of days. So those kinds of examples show you what an impetus a crisis like COVID can be for the business. But we really must try to keep that momentum going. That's one of the risks, as I say, that we see. And furthermore, the pandemic occurred on the heels of a steep slowdown in productivity growth after the financial crisis, 2007 to 2009. And now agile ways of working are kind of a prerequisite. We were focused very much on automation at the structural side of it, and now we're at the front end with COVID as well. That's another aspect that's a bit different, that's requiring governments to shift their focus, not just on streamlining their backroom processes, but also looking at the front end and being more agile, responding to citizens. requirements and improving citizen services in the transparency and the flexibility. And it also looking at the way that they're learning. Digital skills are becoming more important for SAP. This has been something we've invested in consistently in the last decades because we recognize that those skill sets that are required are changing so quickly that you need to reach out not just to employees, but to students, even to at school level. We do a lot of coding for kids around the globe. And keep those digital skill sets updated and renewed. So I'm pretty sure that in retrospect, COVID-19 will be seen as a catalyst for global digitalization, and that countries that have been further ahead of the scale will prove more resilient, and this will also have an impact on their bottom line in their response to the pandemic. Maybe just one last comment also on where we see trends headed. Of course, a lot of this will be the relevance or the easier investment will be in cloud-related infrastructure, in cloud technologies. And there's a lot of resistance in many countries, among many governments, to cloud technologies. We believe from the SAP side, it's primarily a lack of understanding about the security that cloud services can offer. It's more of a technological catch-up, so to speak. Nonetheless, we're seeing an increasing amount of protectionism on the one side. The protection of personal data is one thing. This is something that can be easily accommodated and responded to. But what we are seeing now is an increasing kind of nationalist approach to the technological problem. And that's what we see as a real risk for global digital evolution as such. The digital economy will require the ongoing sharing of best practices, cross-border data flows, and shutting down and creating national IT markets is really not going to be a solution. So that's a concern that we see, and also the reliance perhaps just to create homegrown legacies. Even in a place like Estonia, there's a lot of legacy software in the system still. And we hear this as well in many other markets. In Germany, it's a constant problem. SAP itself works with open source. The Corona Warn app was an open source solution. We have a good, it's not just an off-the-shelf vendor solution that can't be adapted or customized or not work with open source. That's not the case, but you engage or meet with an increasing amount of resistance around that discussion in a lot of governments these days. And that's also a concern that may counteract the impetus and the momentum that digitalization is given by COVID. So a couple of risks, a lot of opportunity, and interested to get your feedback and discuss with you. I unfortunately can't stay in the live discussion too long, but I don't want to give the impression that we're not interested in following up. We have a very active team on the ground across the Baltics region. We have a lot of technology colleagues with experience from the region in our ecosystem. So please feel free to reach out to me either through the dialogue or directly on email after this. Thank you.
Oh